functional land use.
And I wanted you to explain that because I was expecting you to explain the different pictorials you have, what it means.
Oh, the difference between formal land use and functional land use. Land use, it shows the pattern. The pattern of how land is used in an area, and it shows the pattern mainly and the form, while functional land use, it represents how the land is used in an area in the aspect of the occupation and the occupation and transport.
What are the examples now? Because if you give us formal land use and the examples for functional land use, what kind of examples can you give?
Examples of formal land use, as shown in the picture, it shows the built up.
But I need a real example. I need a real example. Yes, we have been given, that's the key for what is done in that picture or in that pictorial representation. But what exactly can we have as an example in real life? Let's say if you go to maybe Nairobi or you go to Kisumu or Mombasa, what can you give us as a formal land use?
Yeah, formal land use is the areas covered by industrial activities such as factories and industries.
Now, so what's the difference between formal land use and functional land use? Because you're giving me, it's like you're confusing now the two.
Functional is mainly concerned with economic activities, and formal is concerned with qualitative attributes.
What are they? What are these ones? Because you need to give us the examples of that. What are these qualitative attributes? And what are these economic activities? Let me ask somebody by the name Ngensi Mativo. Give us an example. Mativo, absent, present. Yes, give us the examples of that. An example of formal land use and then an example of functional land use. Because I think for us to now understand the difference between the formal land use and the functional land use, the formal land use and the functional land use. Gensi, your mic is on, so put it on and talk. I decided to put the mics on for every one of us so that at least you can talk. Nativo, your mic is on, so give us those examples and be very fast because
the functional land use can be in the form of industrial areas or in administratives, while the functional can be the industrial while the formal can be the social economics.
Not really. Who else can assist? Ngensi Mativo, hiyo ni uongo. Wekesa Joram Wafula. Wekesa Joram Wafula. Yes, please answer that question. What exactly? Because, and your mic is on, eh? Everyone to put their mic on and then you mute so that you can answer when I ask you a question. Joram, please don't type, but just talk to us. Mike has a problem on your laptop. That can't be an excuse. So if I want you to present, what will you do? Okay, use your phone then. And as we are waiting for Joram to answer, you can continue to present as we wait for Joram to give us those examples.
What we have here is von Thunen model. These are the models for that depicts land use and transportation relationships. So this von Thunen model, it represents patterns in space and representations of landscape to, yeah, they represent the representations of the landscape. This model was created by J.H. von Thunen, the oldest model used to show transportation and land use relationships, and it was created before industrialization and yes, it was created before industrialization. Next we have land use model. Land use models is...
Now, before you go to land use model, because you haven't explained so much about that von Thunen regional model.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, as much as it's the oldest, how does it explain the land use and how does it explain the transportation network? Because it was the person who came on with it in that year or 19th century, this person was trying to explain how the land use and the transportation network interact together. So you haven't given us how it explains, and even this number 1, 2, 3 up to 5, what does it represent? And which theories did this person use? Which theories did von Thunen use to explain the land use or to explain how transportation network is happening in that area, or by using that model to explain how it happens in an urban area or urban setting?
One of the concepts used by von Thunen is that the concept of economic rent explains a spatial organization where different agricultural activities compete to use available land. The closer allocation is to the market, the lower the transportation cost and availability of land. The underlying principles of this model have been the foundation of many others where economic consideration, namely land rent and distance decay, are incorporated. The model's core assumption is that agricultural land use is in concentric circles. Yes.
Whitney, please just explain. I know you are reading from somewhere, and I wanted you to explain why did
Yes.
this person decide to have a city at the center and also to have livestock farming at the end or at the periphery? That's the end of that model. Why not the livestock farming at the center and then city at the end?
Yes. Um, the it's the concept of economic rent, where different agricultural activities
What is
compete
that
to.
economic rent? Let me call another person from your group to present from there because I think I'm being tough on you. Let me have Cheryl Faith to continue. Faith, because you have to explain why did this person decide that in my model I love the city at the center, and then now the others will follow intensive agriculture, forest resources, grain farming, and then livestock farming at the end. Why not have the city at the end? Why? Or I'm just asking, give me the assumptions of this model. What did this person assume so that he decided that, or he or she decided that, let me have the city at the center of this model?
He assumed that agricultural land use is patterned in the form of concentric circles around a market that consumes all the surplus production, which must be transported. Yes, that's the assumption.
Cheryl,
Yes.
what other assumption?
Oh, he also assumed that transportation cost bears the most influence on the purpose the land will be used. The closer the market, the higher the intensity and productivity of agricultural land use, while the away, the less intensive uses such as livestock and grain dominate.
So in short, what I need is you give me the assumptions of this model. Next, when you are going to give me the final document, you give me the assumptions of this model on how they were basing, yes, as much as they were considering the economic activities and the location of the market, you have to give me the assumptions. Why did this person decide to have the city at the center? So there is that reason as to why the city was supposed to be at the center, because most of the people have to go there to sell their produce. And outside that area of the city, the agricultural activities thrive so much because you can do agriculture outside the city so much than when you are doing at the center. And also at the city center, most of you will segregate, or when you go, you meet at that point to do your own business. But if you have to go to number 5, you see there are so many places passed. See, the space is big, but when you go to number 1, it's a small area whereby so many people can meet and do their own businesses. Hence, he decided, or he or she decided to have that city at the center of that model. So
Yes.
please, you go and also read through the criticisms of that von Thunen model. But I was to ask this group 5. Group 5, you give us the criticisms of that model. And I want to have Waitera criticisms of that von Thunen model. So that person is not there. Group 5. Not group 5. Is it group 5? And group 5 presented. Sorry. These people hapa ndakuwa nimewafanyia mateso. Group 5, no. You did your presentation. Sorry. So I'll pick group 3. Sorry, group 5. I'll pick group 3. Victor Kiiru. Victor Kiiru.
Yes.
Yes. You heard the question.
Can you repeat it again for me, please?
I can't repeat because even me, I've forgotten the question. The criticisms of this Fontunen model. Victor Kiiru.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. And you have heard my question. I've tried my best to repeat.
I did know the criticisms, but I know that as land deviates from the center of the city, it decreases in value. That is
First of all, can you tell us what you mean by criticisms, so that at least you, as you answer the question, you understand what you need to give us as an answer for that.
It is basically a spatial structure in which several agricultural activities compete for the use of available land.
Victor Kiiru.
Yes.
I've asked a question. What is criticisms? Even if you go to the dictionary, what does it mean?
It's basically the limitations of the particular model that we're talking about.
And then?
According to
and you know
me,
there's some positive and negative criticisms. So does it mean it's only the negative bit of it?
No.
So I expect you to answer that question. Next, I'll have to see that in your final document.
So I have two known limitations.
So let me put first that you criticisms. Victor Kiiru. Because when I'll be marking, I have to check whether you answered or not. Yes, you can continue.
It's ready now.
Oh, so the limitations of the model is one that it is basically it's based solely on agricultural land use. The other limitation is that it is focused on towns in Central Europe. So that those are the two limitations that I was able to come up with.
You check others. Those ones doesn't match. And can we apply this model in the current setup of our cities? To describe.
I don't think it is possible with this in the current cities.
So what you do again in your answer, please compare and contrast the current setup of our cities and whether we can use this model to analyze our cities, our current cities.
Okay.
Yes. Joram, you are to answer something, so please go on.
Okay. So for functional land use, examples include areas designated for certain socioeconomic activities. For example, industrial areas. Examples are industrial areas, areas of production. But formal land use examples, these are concerned mainly with the pattern and the form, especially for administrative purposes and functions, So let's say, for example, organization of land because of title deeds and what those are for administrative purposes. That is examples of formal land use. But for functional, they have to do with the socioeconomic activities. Yeah.
So socioeconomic activities alone. So in short, what it means by the formal and the functional. The formal is just like the way you do zoning of a land. When you do zoning of a land, you see when you have different zones, it shows you the space you have to build and the space where you have to set your roads. So it's about the space use or the use of that space. Where will the roads be? Where the buildings be? That's the only thing about the formal land use. How you utilize your space. That's the formal land use. Functional land use now is on those zones now where which you have been given. You are to do some buildings and you are supposed to do some roads or the transportation system. Which kind of transportation system have you done in that area whereby it was given for the transportation system? What kind of building have you done in the area whereby you have been given to build or where it was zoned for building? So that you can now give me an example, like there is an industry somewhere here producing this and this and this. If you go to industrial area, there is an industry producing steel. There is an industry maybe where they produce this kind of material. There is an office block somewhere. There is a school somewhere. That's an institution. So you have to give me all that. Or you say there are some people residing in this area. So people decided to build some residences somewhere. So that you can differentiate now the formal land use, how you utilize your space, and the functional land use, what now comes in the built up area or the transportation area, whereby you are given to build and where you are supposed to put your transportation system. What did you put up there? So those are the two differences for the formal land use and the functional land use. So it means how now you see when you go to land use itself, how are these two related now, the formal and the functional land use representations? How will they be related? So we continue with the presentation of land use model.
The second model is the Burgess concentric model. The formal land use representation of this model is derived from commuting distance from the central business district, creating
What about this page? Page 8, what was it about? The land use model. The land use model, what was it about?
It used the concept of economic rent to explain spatial organization.
No, you guys, you are not getting me.
Oh, it's about the phone.
Let me ask in this way. This is group 8.
Yes.
Lillian Lanoi, let me ask. Please give me the urban land use models.
Yes.
The different urban land use models, please give me a list of those so that at least when we are going on now with the explanations, at least we know what you are discussing.
The urban land use models.
Yes. How many do you know?
The von Thuen, and then there's the Burgess, the concentric model.
Yes.
And then there's the polycentric and zonal, the sector and multiple nuclei sector models. And then there's the hybrid models, right? Oh, there are more.
There are more.
Oh, is the land rent theory a model?
Yes, it's part of it.
Oh, yeah, then the land rent theory model.
Another one.
No,
You look for another one. There is one forgotten. So
economic
now,
based theory. Oh, okay.
now you look for that one. So
Mm-hmm.
those five now, which I know you have in your document.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have this? Why do we have this land use model here?
Oh, this slide. Why do we have it here?
Yes, why do we have it here? Yes,
Oh,
that's
probably it's a mistake. We're so sorry about that.
it's a mistake, which is confusing all of us.
Yeah,
Even me, I'm confused.
yeah, we're so sorry.
So it's a mistake. Now let's go to Burgess concentric model, Omolo or Romo.
Oh,
Continue.
Omoro. Yes, okay.
Moro, continue.
The Burgess model, characteristics of concentric zones. It has 5 concentric zones. Then Burgess suggested that immigrants lived in inner zones, which caused affluent residents to move further out. Then the concentric zones weakness is that it does not allow for change in the city. Then the concentric zone does not allow for physical geographic barriers.
Now, let me ask, what are the assumptions of this model? That's the same question. And what do we have? What are the characteristics of a CBD in this model? What are the characteristics of the first concentric zone, that's CBD, the one given in blue?
Mm, zone 1. The characteristic.
Yes, characteristics of CBD.
So the large city is divided in 6 concentric zones. Zone 1, CBD, where most tertiary employment is located and urban transport infrastructure converges. Then zone 2, immediately
No,
adjacent.
I've said okay. Let me ask you this question this way. Give me at least 3 characteristics of a CBD in this model.
Almost tertiary employment is located. Then in the CBD, most urban transport infrastructure converges. Those are the characteristics of the CBD.
No, those ones are not.
It's most accessible.
Yes, most accessible. I can accept that.
It's centrally located.
It's centrally located. I can accept that. Those are 2.
What if we say most tertiary employment is located in the CBD?
Not really. It depends on how you defend your answer there now, because it will depend on how you defend that answer or give us the facts.
Well, it has the highest land value.
Yes, it has the highest land value.
And converging of urban transport infrastructure.
But in some areas, there are some limitations of transportation or limitations of motorized transport. So you can't say there is convergence. That's wrong.
And rents are exceptionally high.
But you had said that. When you say land value, what does it mean?
Or rent is
Or you can go and do a structure in CBD and just say maybe your rent should be lower than what the other people are charging. Let me get this guy to answer because I'm just picking anyone. So I hope Keep Kemboy Emmanuel. Kemboy Emmanuel. Kemboy, are you around? Uliama. You are present. I thought you went to structures. So please assist. We are stuck somewhere. Please assist.
Yes, I'm present.
Yes, so you can assist. You heard what you were discussing. So please.
The characteristics of the Burgess model.
What she was answering. Characteristics of Omoro, what were you answering? Characteristics of what?
of CBD.
Yes.
Characteristics of CBD.
Yes.
The main businesses in the CBD are commercial businesses mostly.
That's wrong. Okay, all of you, I think, because even you, it seems you are just locked in and you're doing your own things. And I've highlighted your name. And I need you to give me at least 2 so that I can give you marks. If you don't give me, I say you didn't answer. And when I'll be marking, I know how to mark your work.
The other one is most of the buildings are high-rise ones.
So when you go to Kilimani, the buildings are low-rise. When you go to Lavington, when you go to Westlands,
there's no
I think when you go to Upper Hill, also the buildings are very tall, very high compared to the ones in the CBD.
There's no like spaces around, not so much space around. Yeah. So like the buildings are in close proximity, unlike other places when you start moving outside the CBD.
Please go and think. None of the above is correct. So we go to somebody else. What are the characteristics of zone of transition? Because there is zone number 2, transitional zone. Zone of transition. Emmanuel?
Could you repeat the question?
Characteristics of zone of transition. How will you know that this area is zone of transition?
I think it depends on the population of the specific area you're talking about.
Did you participate in discussion of this work in your group?
Yes.
You did?
So we did.
But it seems you are off. So let me pick that another person to assist. But now you rethink. Nzoka Mary Finya.
Yes, sir. The characteristics of the transitional zone.
Yes, yes. Give me at least two. At least two. I think I'll be okay with that.
One of the characteristics is the land use changes to manufacturing and industrial activities. So it's characterized by having many factories, for example.
Yes.
And it also contains the poorer population, the lower income population.
Yes, at least that one accept.
Also,
It means the area is mainly of low class. You see, you have seen, I think,
yeah,
where
the area
exactly.
is characterized by residential land use also.
You have said what? The last one, sorry.
Apart from the other two characteristics, some zonal areas within the transitional zone could be characterized by residential land use.
Yes. Can I ask you an example? If you base yourself in Nairobi, base yourself now, maybe your case study is Nairobi. Can you
Yes,
give me an example of this zone of transition? Which area in Nairobi fits this?
I'd say somewhere like Ngara, Githurai,
No.
Tundul. Okay, Thika is the only area I know that's industrial, but it's not characterized by low-income individuals, but it's very industrial.
Very industrial, and it's characterized by low.
Yeah, but it's characterized by some residential areas.
So if I go to Nairobi, somewhere like Jogoro, then along industrial area, doesn't it fit to be called zone of transition?
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't say that.
Is it not made of, maybe the area has a lot of factories
It does actually.
for production purposes?
It does.
Is it not made of the old housing? You have seen some housing whereby they were built by the municipal council long time ago.
Yeah, it actually
So there is
does.
old housing there. The
It
low
does.
class houses, you have seen the low class houses. If you have gone through industrial area where most of the students stay, yeah, from Tuk.
Yeah.
So those are the things. Ngara, do you have some industries or factories?
No. Actually,
Because
no.
zone of transition is supposed to be mainly about the industrial zone, made of some factories or some industries there. But there is a bit of people who have decided to stay with their kind of low class houses. You see the informal settlements, eh?
Yeah.
So the other people or in all the groups, please consider having for the other three, the characteristics of the other three in your work so that we can move forward to sector and multiple nuclear land use model. And also consider giving us the assumptions and criticisms of that model. Tomorrow.
Yes.
Waiting for you.
So our urban models are on page 22. Would you please project page 22? There was a confusion with the app things.
Page 22.
Yeah, 23.
Sasa hii ni gani tena?
Yeah, our models start from there.
Now, which one should I mark? The first part or the last part?
The first part was an introduction. The actual part is this on page 23.
Sector and multiple nuclei land use models. And there is this person logged in as G. And more of it, you are logged in with your name only. You are supposed to log in using your full details. Eh?
Yes, I'll add my registration number.
So continue.
Sector and multiple nuclei land use models. These models were developed to take into account numerous factors overlooked by concentric models, namely the influence of transport corridors and the multiple nuclei on land use and growth. It considers the emerging impacts of motorization on the urban spatial structure, particularly through the beginning of suburbanization and the setting of polycentric cities. It also considers that transportation infrastructures, particularly terminals such as rail stations or ports, occupy specific locations and are also land uses. Or there is a pictorial representation of the model. Section 1 is the CBD, that is colored brown. Section 2 is the wholesale and light manufacturing. 3 is the low class residential. 4 is the middle class residential, and 5 is the high class residential. Then the 6 is the heavy manufacturing. 7 sub-business district. 8 residential suburban. Then 9 industrial suburban.
Now, my question is, why did these people decide to come up with this sector and nuclear land use model, and yet we had what you call the von Thunen and Burgess concentric model?
It was developed to take into account numerous factors that were overlooked by the other models.
Which are?
Or like influence of transport corridors. Then it was also finding a way to explain the urban land use as an alternative to the concentric zone model.
So what was the assumption? Some of the assumptions under this sector?
Some of the assumptions.
Because the other two were saying that motorization usually decide how urban spatial structure is. But now this one, what was the assumption of this? You see, the others were saying when you have so many people coming into the city, we will have that concentric model. So there will be a CBD and then it goes outside. So it means motorization decided so much on the urban spatial structure. But on this one now, what was the assumption? So that we can have, you see, this one is not in concentric format. It's in different sectors. You see from sector 1 up to all, we have up to number 5. At least one assumption. Criticisms, because you have decided to mute on that. Tomorrow. So some of the assumptions are what you see now. The assumptions based on that sector and nuclear land use model is people could afford to buy cars. People could afford to buy cars, hence they could live in any other part of that area. So they could live even further from the industry or from the CBD. So it's not like the other one whereby most of the people were supposed to go to the CBD or any other function now could be close to the CBD. Like the industries are close to the CBD, like in the zone of transition for the Burgers Concentric model. This one you see it's from far from the CBD, as you can see from that chart. The way it's going outside the CBD, the wholesale and light manufacturing. Wholesale and light manufacturing. You can see even number 6, the heavy manufacturing is far from number 1. So it means people can even drive further because they have cars. They were not limited to only going to the central part of that urban area. And also people decided because they have cars now, they chose to live along the transport links, whether it's a railway line, because mostly on this part now, it's all about the communication and how you can reach to that area where you need to have your service. So most of the people chose to live close to the transportation links, either along the rail lines or along the roads. And then now the developments happened. Most of the developments happens, and cities now grew along those transportation axes. So you can add more assumptions. There are around 6. When you're giving me the final document, there are more assumptions on that. And then there are criticisms. One is that it assumes that there are no plan controls. There are no planning controls. Yes, you can see from that sector and the nuclear. The sector and the nuclear, they are different, but representing the same model. So the assumption is there are no planning controls on these areas. So it can come up in any manner. So there are no planning controls, no planning controls. And also, it does not consider, for the other one, we said there is low cost housing along this transition zone, or the houses whereby the informal houses in some areas come up close to the transition zones. But for this one, they're not there. So hybrid models,
So under hybrid models,
the other
these
person
models.
present,
Oh, okay. Okay.
like is it Sima Basajili? Hey, this name Basaja Balabala. Sima, Yes, at least Chompa gave us a sector model assumes wealthy people who can afford the highest rentals and rates, choose best sites, and can afford private cars or transportation that live further from industry and near the main roads. So at least Chompa had answered that. And also in the exam, you see, for the exam purposes, I won't set something you just copy from this note. At least most of the questions will be application. Oh, not all of them, most, but not all of them. Because I know if I say all of them, itakuwa kubaya. Sima, are you in a club?
Yes, I'm here.
In a club?
No. I'm here.
Where?
Oh, I'm in class.
Which class?
The transport class.
Location?
JQuat.
Okay. Because I had some background noise and some music, so I thought you were somewhere else.
Oh,
having
no,
fun.
no. Oh, hybrid models. These models are an attempt to include the concentric, sector, and nuclear behavior of the different processes in explaining the urban land use. The hybrid representations are suitable to explain the evolution of the urban spatial structure as they combine different spatial and temporal impacts of transportation on urban land use, such as concentric and radial impacts. The model tries to integrate the strength of each approach, since none of these appear to provide an entirely satisfactory explanation. Yeah, now this illustrates the hybrid model. The brown is the center, the orange is the industrial, the yellow is the commercial, the cream is the residential, and the line is the transport axis.
So what are the assumptions of that model? Because it was trying to explain the other models now. It was trying to...
Yes?
It was taking through, maybe the others had some disadvantages, or it didn't explain how the urban areas or urban land use takes place. So this one now, it was trying to explain or take into account the other bits whereby it was not explained by the other models. So my question is,
Yes.
what were the assumptions that this hybrid model took for it to come up with this kind of design, or the pictorial you have here?
The assumptions are
Because you mentioned that it's like it's coming up with now. You see the first statement, attempt to include the concentric, sector, and nuclear behavior of different processes in explaining land use. So it's
yes.
taking into account now what the three other models used, and now check their weaknesses and also their
Yes.
strengths, putting them together to give us what you call the hybrid models. So it's a combination of the three. What was the assumptions?
The assumptions are the attempts to combine the advantages of each approach because none of them appears to provide a completely satisfactory explanation.
So you go look at the assumptions and also criticisms of these hybrid models. Huh?
Yes, I will.
Then we go to land rent theory. Before you there, let me answer this guy or Diambo Humphrey. Diambo is asking, how do we apply these things in land? And I'll ask him, how, when you design of a pile, when you are doing design of piles, when you are doing foundation engineering, how do you apply that design of a pile? Because of it is theoretical. If somebody asks you a practical question, how do you apply that knowledge? Same case here, we are doing theory. If I ask you to do a case study of maybe a certain city and they use that model to explain that city, is in that the application of this or of the knowledge you're learning here? Or you want direct questions like when you do piles, when you do piles or when you do structural design, when you are designing a high section or a hollow section, then somebody just gives you the data, then you do the design. Instead of giving you just all the other parameters, then you start from getting the loadings as you move forward to do your design. Same case here. We do the theory, then you come and apply now. If I ask you to do a case study of somewhere, you do give us the application. How can we apply or how can we compare that model with the development of that urban area? So land rent theory, which is another model of trying to explain how urban land use takes place.
Land rent theory was developed to explain land use as an outcome of a market where different urban activities are competing to secure a footprint at a location. There are three concepts that are at the core of the land rent theory. There is rent gradient, and bid rent curve function. About rent, a surplus, which is a profit resulting from the advantages such as capitalization and accessibility. Its basis is on the capacity to pay and it's a function of an economic activity. Then there is the rent gradient, which is a representation of the decline in the rent with distance from the point of reference, which is usually the CBD. Then the bid rent curve function is the combination of the land prices and distances among which a farm is indifferent. It also describes the price range that a household would willingly be able to pay at a various location to achieve a given level of satisfaction.
Now, let me ask you, can you explain
Yes.
that model? You see the way you have given us the difference. There's the rural and urban areas.
Yes.
So using this chart, can you explain to us? Because we have given the three concepts of land theory, which is rent gradient, and bid rent curve function. So you have to explain to us these models based on that.
Okay.
So that we can understand. You see, if I ask you now, why is CBD situated at that point and not at the point whereby we have the low density residential areas?
Now, like for the urban, there's the CBD. Then the theory, the land rent theory, is based on the market principle of spatial competition in which actors compete to secure and maintain their presence in a particular location. The higher the rent value and the intensity of activities, the more desirable the location. That's why, like in the urban, where the CBD is, there is high density residential around it, and also the commercial, the industries are closer to the CBD because the CBD is more desirable.
How can we generate the bid rent curve from that rent theory? How can we generate the bid rent curve function from this rent theory? You see, we have two, number 1 and number 3. Of course, we have to generate some curves showing us the function for the rent. Because I'm not seeing the part I was expecting to see the bid rent curves. And those curves should have explained to us that when you are close to the CBD, the rent is very high. When you go out to the low residential areas, the rents are
lower.
Yes. So how, because you have to generate those bid rent curves, and then you will use that one to explain to us, yes, as you move away from the CBD, explain the cost of land, what generates this rent to be high. Cost of land, what and what and what. You see that? So
Yes.
that as you edge towards the low residential area, the rent now is lower. So from the curves now, under that number 3, bid rent curve, you will be able, you can generate that now from the rent theory itself.
Yes.
And it will explain your land rent theory or land use by use of land rent theory.
Yes.
But it's not.
Oh, we gave a land rent theory assumes that the CBD represents the most desirable location with a high level of accessibilities. The surrounding areas within the 1 kilometer, as shown on the graph, has a surface of about 3.14. Under such circumstances,
what is that S of 3.14? What is it? And how do you calculate that?
S is equal to pi d squared.
S equals to pi d
squared. Yes. Under such circumstances, the rent is a function of the availability of the land, which is 1 over S. That shows that it's the inverse. The inverse. When the availability of land is low, the rent will be high.
Okay. At least that one is a better explanation.
Okay.
So when the space is low or there is minimal space, the rent is
higher.
High. So when you get more space, the rent becomes lower.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go to transportation and urban dynamics. I'm giving you Tikani Lilian Lanala, this name. I'll be only mentioning the registration numbers. Some names are hard to pronounce. Lilian?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, let's go back to transportation and land use cycle.
Where is it?
Before that. Wait. Yeah. No, you've gone too far.
I've gone too far. Spatial interaction model.
Let's go.
Next.
Next. Yeah, they are there. The land use and transportation cycle. So the land use and transportation cycle is an ongoing cycle that keeps happening. So this means that, you see, if new buildings are coming up in a certain area, so roads have to be constructed in that certain area. And then when transportation is made available to a specific area, people actually they continue building in that certain area. So that means that